Mouse Rebel News fans, it has now been some time since the election of Donald J. Trump to the 45th President of the United States of America. And now, having had some of this time removed from the actual event, we can take a moment to think about a lot of the events and a lot of the meaning behind this election and what had happened. Well, this certainly does signify something that has been very unique. There has not been an election like this in ever. In fact, Donald Trump has blazed an entire new way forward in carrying out an election, carrying out a whole campaign. And one thing he definitely deserves credit for is that he understood how to use social media and television better than the Democratic Party did. I mean, he is, for all intents and purposes, a reality TV star, and he knew how to use the internet better than Hillary Clinton did, and that was a huge strength for him. That's where he was able to get his message out quite a lot. He not only had that old white racist vote, he had a lot of the younger people too, because of his ability to utilize that medium. And we have to understand that this is the first time that an election has really been influenced by internet memes, which is a really sad, pathetic thing. But it's a truth, no matter how much we may not like it. And Donald Trump has certainly showed that things are going to change from now on. Elections are going to be done different. Campaigns are going to be done different. But with regards to the actual election itself, again, we saw Florida very, very close. For a while, they were only like 0.1 percentage points, and sometimes actually dead tied with one another. But eventually, Donald Trump did pull out the win, and he did win the majority of seats in the Electoral College. But this election showed something very interesting. Donald Trump preached nothing but utter hatred, and he won. He said very little outside of bland pleasantries. Yeah, I'll make us good. But then really says nothing. But that resonated with the American voter enough to get a majority. Although, of course, not everybody voted for him. I'm not suggesting that they did. But he got a majority. And that's what's important when you're going through elections. His substanceless campaign is what got him the win. There is the old idea that the voters are stupid and that they will take a nice message. They will take an easy answer, an easy incorrect answer over a complicated correct one. That's not to say that Hillary Clinton had a correct answer. She most certainly did not. But what Donald Trump offered was an easy answer that pandered to people's prejudices, and it certainly worked. And a lot of what he did, his stance, was reaching out to people who are dissatisfied with the government. A lot of them, as some media outlets have claimed, are tired of politicians not keeping their word, which is odd because I could have sworn they were politicians. So why would you even expect them to keep their word? And nor why would the voters now expect Donald Trump to keep his word? He's a politician now. There's the old saying, you get the government you ask for. Everything Trump is going to do is the result of the people voting for him. Now, while the elections are a fraud from a democracy standpoint, it's bourgeois parliamentarianism. This is really a choice you get to pick between what the ruling class puts forward. They still legitimized the election by participating in it and even picking Donald Trump to win. So everything he's going to do and every bad thing that's going to come out of this is on the head of the United States public. And none of this garbage that it's the fault of people who voted for third parties and it's their fault that Trump won. This is complete nonsense. They voted for the person that they believed would do the best, the person that they wanted, that represented what it is that they want. And people are going to be hurt as a result of this. But America, this is America. This racist, sexist, homophobic face that has now been presented to the world in the form of Donald Trump is what America is. It's what it has always been. If anything, this election has been more honest about what America is than anything in election history. One of the things that made Obama who he was the fact that he represented what America could be. Of course, he had no intention of actually carrying that out, but he represents something that people wanted that America could be, whereas Donald Trump is the epitome of what America is. Overly simplistic, hateful crap. And that's what it's always been. Now, Trump also did this election, not necessarily Trump, did throw the polls right up in the air. What the polls say is not what happened. And there is a huge deviation there, and that's something that's very significant to this. And it's going to call into question polls in the future. They're going to say, well, the polls say this, and say, oh, well, they said something about Donald Trump previously, and it didn't work out that way. The polls really were wrong this time. They were not close at all. A lot of people really asked for change in this election. They trust me, they're going to get it. They want things to be different. They want away from the established order that is just a repetition of the same thing over and over again. And that's what Donald Trump wrote on, dissatisfaction towards the federal government. Well, change, you're going to get it. But I really wonder to what degree. How different will Trump really be? He can say one thing, but I certainly expect him to do another, because that would be literally politics. Despite all of his bluster, it's really questionable how much of this he would really carry out. Is he really going to be the loud, aggressive bombast that says to hell with people? But was that the Donald Trump that we saw in his acceptance speech? No, we saw a totally different man. We saw one that was talking about unity, getting the country back on track, bringing everyone together, forgiving his enemies, and wanting to work with them, even going so far as to say he needs them. Now, to some degree, I can certainly understand that. The regular general politicians don't like him, and for good reason. And those people, if they're not on his side, are probably going to screw over his presidency. But the message is certainly different than the one that he had been giving this entire time. He said uniting across, all different races and religions, when that's really not what he ran on whatsoever. So that's what leads me to believe that he may not be the person or completely the person that he says. Because, well, he says he wants to get along with countries as long as they choose to get along with the United States. Are we really supposed to believe that he can just snap his fingers and make imperialism change? That aggressive U.S. foreign policy that has dominated since the beginning of the United States will just simply cease to exist? Imperialism doesn't happen because some crooked or evil capitalist or representative of said class is inside the government. It happens because it has to happen. It's the very nature of capital and international competition itself. And there's nothing really Donald Trump can do to change that. Imperialism needs to imperialize. And that's basically what it's going to do. So I really don't see him being able to change anything in that regard. Now, he said he's going to renegotiate trade agreements, which is possible. You can do that. You can renegotiate them. But I wonder if they're really going to. How much are they going to be renegotiated? I'll bet it's pretty far from the fantastic claim he's made that, I'm going to bring all the jobs back. I'm going to revive coal, which, by the way, coal is the single worst possible thing you could have in terms of energy. He's made a lot of claims about things that he can do, that he's going to do economically, and has demonstrated a complete lack of understanding when it comes to economics. It's seemingly what he claims he's going to do is absolutely impossible. It doesn't seem like there's a way for him to do it at all. But something I saw was very strange. I watched the election mostly on CNN. And I saw once it was clear that Hillary Clinton had lost, Now, before the congratulatory or concession phone call, all of a sudden CNN started being really, really nice to Donald Trump. Started saying all these really nice things. Oh, he can be a great uniter. No, he's not. He's actually a very good divider. He ran his entire campaign on being divisive. But now they turn around and they start saying like how he was so uniting in his campaign and being real nice to him. He outright threatened to completely censor the media, to do many of the fascist things that were claimed that Obama was going to do. They just suddenly decided to make this complete, 180. So much for the integrity of CNN. And one of the things I much noticed from social media, particularly Tumblr, I know Tumblr. They really believe that this is it, that they're going to die. And tons of people on social media, particularly LGBT people, were saying how they're thinking about killing themselves right now because Donald Trump got elected, and that this is going to be it. They're going to be herded into camps like FEMA, like the total boogeyman that was fed to us by right wingers when Obama was elected. The fact is, Donald Trump hasn't really said much of anything towards the LGBT community. In fact, his stance has largely been that he doesn't care. He doesn't even think about it. So I sincerely doubt that Donald Trump is going to do anything to LGBT people. However, having said that, maybe the people who on the right who oppose LGBT and are certainly in support of suppression of such people may become emboldened by his election. But for Donald Trump himself, he has said almost next to nothing on such gender issues, aside from being a monstrously huge misogynist. He's not spoken how he's going to suppress or hurt anybody in that capacity. Now, we saw that at least the market had a very negative effect towards his victory. The futures markets tanked, and they tanked actually lower than they did the first day trading was open after 9/11. I believe it was several days after. It was lower than that. The market reacted very negatively to Donald Trump. That has largely to do with his anti-NAFTA stance, possibly even anti-NATO stance. But again, the market always overreacts and then self-corrects afterwards. And again, we have to see what Trump will actually do, because despite his big, loud bombast about being against the establishment and Wall Street and whatnot, he's still going to cut the taxes for corporations. That's pretty much standard fare for capitalism, and not to mention the fact that he's a billionaire himself, and he outsources jobs with his clothing line just as everybody else does. He's not immune from the effects of capital, nor do I believe that he's really going to change that at all. But again, we'll have to wait and see, because he is not a typical politician. He is definitely an outsider fulfilling the role of politician. So that's still a big question mark in my mind. And once again, as this election was being carried out, Immigration Canada, their website crashed from the number of Americans looking up to come over here as a result of Donald Trump's election. One, I would like to see how many actually follow through on it. How many people have been threatening to do it, that if he was elected, they'd leave and come to Canada? I imagine very few of them will actually carry it out. And as a Canadian, I can say, I don't want you here. I don't care if even if you are a Hillary supporter, I still don't want you here. Okay, our politics are very different. Canada maintains a very nice veneer of being polite and not being imperialist, even though we actually are. But we still have a very largely secular and liberal-ish society. And we don't want you fucking that up. Like, we legitimately don't want you here, even if you are a Hillary or even a Jill Stein supporter. We don't want you here. So, don't force me to take personal actions. Don't make there be a situation where there has to be, news reports of some guy with a faux hawk, or protecting the border between Canada and the United States, militia style, because I may have to do that if you decide to migrate here en masse. But this election, all kidding aside, this election has been something that has been very significant in history. A true outsider candidate not only won the presidency of the United States, he managed to walk in the front door, completely bull in a china shop, just completely wreck the party that he was representing. He walked in, played by his own rules, said what he meant, did what he said he was going to do, and took over. And for that, despite how horrible a person he is, I gotta give him respect for that. I can't think of anybody else who could have possibly pulled that off. So, props to him for doing that. But again, I think the main message to bring to the world right now about Donald Trump is, because he is such a strange political character, it really remains to be seen how much he would really do and how far he would really go. Because he can't really act outside of the establishment. He's only a person that works within it, even if it is a very powerful position within it. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, and quite possibly the biggest question mark that has ever held that office in history. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.